Good afternoon and welcome to today's Presort and Post-Presort webinar, the latest in an ongoing series of educational webinars from WindowBook. My name is Wallace Vinglas and I'm Vice President here at WindowBook. Joining me today is Monica Lundquist, WindowBook's Postal Affairs and Technical Support Manager. Today's webinar will discuss the two different types of software you need to use to be successful in today's and tomorrow's mailing world: Presort and Post-Presort software. We'll also look at why having Post-Presort software is becoming more and more critical to keeping up with all the latest initiatives from the Postal Service. Here's a look at how we're going to spend our time together today. We're going to talk about the two essential types of software you need: Presort software and Post-Presort software. We're going to talk about how they differ from each other. Excuse me. We're also going to talk about how they work together, and then why you need both to be successful in the mailing world. First, we're going to look at Presort software. Now, I'm not talking about just that one application that sorts your name and address file into a sequence dictated by the Postal Service for postal discounts. I'm actually talking about that and everything that happens before it. If you will, think pre-sort, hyphenate that word. We're going to talk about address verification. We're going to talk about address hygiene, mailing list management like merge purge, and then we're going to talk quickly about the actual Presort itself. So when we're in the address hygiene world, you're looking for three things, 3 C's. You want to make sure your addresses are complete, correct, and current. So to get complete and correct, you first start out by using a Postal Service CAS certified piece of software that during the first step takes the input address records and validates them against the range of possibilities in the Postal Service ZIP+4 database. And really what's happening there, say you have an input address of 123 Main Street. The software is going to look and compare it against the database from the Postal Service. And the database says, hey, I've got valid addresses for the even side of the street and the odd side of the street for a range of 100 through 200 on Main Street in that zip code. So at that point, the software says you have a valid address. You can progress on to the next step. The next step is a more finite level of validation using the DPV file. This validates whether or not the delivery point is an actual deliverable address. It's going to tell you whether or not that 123 Main Street, can you deliver mail there? It may go in there and say, I've got a 121 and I've got a 125. A 123 is a non-deliverable address or undeliverable address. The next thing it's going to do is it's going to compare things against the LaxLink database. That's to see if the address has been converted, typically from a rural route box number address to a street style address. And just brief history there. Back in the early 1980s, there were a lot of local governments and municipalities around the country that were trying to set up E911 systems, emergency 911 systems. And they found it difficult to dispatch first responders, police, fire, ambulance, found it difficult to dispatch them to an address of Rural Route 10, Box 4. So these governments decided we've got to convert these addresses to something that makes more sense, that we can map better. So they started converting them to street style, 789 Elm Street, which used to be Rural Route 10, Box 4. So the Postal Service looked at this and said, hey, this would be great data to pass along to our mailers. That way, when they're, we can do the same thing with our mail carriers that the governments are doing for their first responders. We can direct them to an actual street style address versus that box style. Now, there are a couple other different types of conversion